Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network, and hot damn, third time's the charm. But you just cannot stop the signal. We're coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona, and despite some serious technical difficulties, we are about to get underway. We're going to be discussing the European Union. Do they truly represent an enemy to freedom or a foe, as President Trump stated? We're going to talk about Brexit, and we're also going to talk about the coming political fallout here in the United States as the left drifts closer and closer to progressive socialism. All that and more here on the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
The American people are frustrated because their elected officials don't listen. When we're home on the campaign trail, we say we listen. And yet something about this Senate floor, something about Washington, D.C., I don't know if it's the water, something in the air, the cherry blossoms, but people get here and they stop listening to the American people.
What we witnessed here today in the Security Council is an insult. It won't be forgotten. It's one more example of the United Nations doing more harm than good in addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
My duty, and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber, is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. Because Americans are dreamers too.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Senators, members of Congress, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. President. You had one damn job. Seriously.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, indeed, the new conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now with you. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network, coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona. And my sincerest apologies to all of you who have been missing me. Unfortunately, I've been called away by family duties for the last 2 weeks. Unfortunately, my family did suffer the loss of my pops, and he has succumbed to his battle with colon cancer. If you have not been on my Facebook You can jump on there, and there's a great charity that we're doing a memorial collection for. That is the Colorectal Cancer Alliance of America, who were of great help to my parents when my pops was diagnosed with that horrible affliction, the plague of the 21st century, as it was called in Medicine Man, great film with Sean Connery. So, coming back to the point of today's podcast, I've been gone for 2 weeks. Whole bunch of crap's been happening. I've been depending on my buddies Steven and Dylan over there, Defenders of American Exceptionalism, to keep me apprised and keep me up to date. If you haven't been checking them out, they've recently launched their own website, DOAEshow.com. That is DOAEshow.com, the Defenders of American Exceptionalism. My fellow Lanterneers, make sure to check them out. They put on a great show twice a week. So when you're not listening to me, check those guys out. Also wanted to thank AJ Davis, the Common Sense Radio host here on Lanterns as well, for continuing to carry the ball while I've been away. Now, over the pond, there's been a lot of news. President Trump touring the United Kingdom just yesterday. A lot of kerfuffle over his visit with Queen Elizabeth II. Was described as arriving late, and appeared quite inept and unable to execute the various codes of decorum and polite conduct with the Queen, because there's a very particular set of rules that you need to follow, and he's been getting absolutely raked over the coals for cutting off the Queen, apparently, when they were touring and inspecting the military procession there at Windsor Palace. I watched the whole thing, watched it end to end, and I really don't see what the hell they were talking about. Number one, anything having to do with the royals is choreographed to a T. The timing is worked out precisely. So, for people to say, that the Queen was standing out there waiting for the president, I watched the video. If anything, maybe 5 minutes tops. And these events, these are all choreographed, planned to a T, and the transportation is managed to a T by the government of the UK. So if the president arrived late to Windsor Palace, call up Windsor Palace, okay? Don't call the president for being late on this one. You really can't, because if you didn't notice, the president rolled up in a Land Rover. The president doesn't typically roll up in a Land Rover when he is away on foreign duties. There's a very large vehicle, colloquially referred to as the Beast by the Secret Service, which is the President of the United States' specialized bulletproof, bomb-proof, rocket-proof, God knows what else proof vehicle, which is made here in the USA. He did not arrive to the door of Windsor Palace in the Beast. He likely arrived at the royal grounds overall in that vehicle and then transitioned to it looked to be a Land Rover, might have been a Mercedes. But he, as I said, was not in his bannered Secret Service vehicle. Instead, he arrived in a smaller SUV to the gates of Windsor Palace. All of this conducted by royal officials. So if somebody missed a couple of steps in the big dance of meeting with the Queen, I don't know, maybe you check with the Home Office there. Maybe you check with the Royal Secretary. See what happened before you start blaming the president for arriving late to a royal function. And the thing, I almost went blind when I saw this online. People are actually against the president because he didn't bow. Are you insane? No sitting president of the United States should ever bow to a foreign sovereign. This goes back to the earliest days of the American Republic, when our early ambassadors were received at the court of St. James by King George II. I'm sorry, King George III, I think it was. They didn't bow. The American flag did not dip to a foreign head of state. And it never will. Our president does not bow to a foreign royal, nor does our flag dip in deference to a foreign sovereign. It's not who we are. The president striding up to the Queen, extending his hand and giving her a proper handshake, that's completely okay. I think Slate did a decent write-up on this. I don't have that one up on screen right now. What I have up on screen right now is another piece of trash from the Daily News, which, I could provide you a link, but don't read this garbage. Don't give him the click. Okay. President Trump calls the European Union one of America's biggest foes by Aaron Durkin of the Daily News City Hall Bureau. Dated 11:30 a.m. today. Check out this crap. All right. President Trump threw another bruising punch in his Euro-trashing tour of America's allies Sunday, labeling the European Union a top foe ahead of Russia and China. Now, bless their hearts, they actually put the real quote in there. He says, I think we have a lot of foes. I think the European Union is a foe. What they do to us in trade. Now, you wouldn't think of the European Union, but they're a foe, he said, before leaving for Helsinki for his much-anticipated summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, why would President Trump say that the European Union is a foe? Oh, he says it right in the quote. You don't have to explore this. This doesn't require a great deal of intellectual depth. It's right there in the quote, which they provided for you in context. I think the European Union is a foe. What they do to us in trade. In other words, they have made a foe of themselves by proactively antagonizing the United States in trade. You could argue that the EU has made themselves a foe of Britain as well by proactively antagonizing them throughout the Brexit process. Let's think about the European Union for a beat, okay? The European Union, this is a group of countries which have come together, co-federally, in order to half-heartedly unite Europe, I would say, because none of the countries want to give up all their sovereignty. They just want to give up most of it. But they're lashing themselves together in this pseudo-socialist fever dream, is the best phrase that I can come up with for it. Essentially, they've strapped a yoke around Germany and France are limping the rest of Europe forward. They're seriously concerned now because the UK, the number 2 provider in all of the EU, is backing out, and they're going to lose all that clout. So, you want to talk about foes. The European Union has actively made itself a foe of the United States, again, in the realm of trade. Go back to your Godfather quotes, kids. It's not personal, it's business. It's not personal, it's business. So, can a country be a military ally and still be a foe of ours in the realm of trade or in the realm of diplomacy? Yes. Absolutely. You can have an adversarial relationship in one facet of the greater relationship. When the United States and Canada and Mexico sit down at the negotiating table, is that not adversarial? Are they not all working in their best interests? And when those best interests do not ally, their goal is to win the negotiation, so to speak. So that is an adversarial relationship. So when the president identifies the European Union as a foe, and clearly identifies them a foe in trade, this is not giving any implication that the European Union is an overall foe of the United States, or one of our greatest foes, as the Daily News chooses to interpret that as. No. He moved on to the United Kingdom, where it was critical of Prime Minister Theresa May's plan for the country's exit from the European Union voted for in the Brexit referendum. Trump told the British paper The Sun that her approach, which sought to work out trade and border agreements with the EU, had, quote, killed the chance for a British trade deal with the United States once Brexit is complete. The British leader dismissed Trump's suggested ploy for striking a deal with the EU. He told me I should sue the EU, May told the BBC on Sunday. Not go into negotiations, sue them. Actually, no, we're going to go into negotiations with them. Now, let's not mince words here. the Chequers Compromise, which resulted in an exodus of pro-Brexit ministers from Theresa May's cabinet, is a joke. It is a sad joke at the expense of conservatives and pro-Brexiteers who voted, cast their ballot, and expected their voice to be heard and their will to be carried out by their leaders in Parliament. It is a sad, sad joke. The President of the United States, fully within his right to criticize Theresa May's execution of the Brexit. This is not a situation where you should be dealing in soft terms with the EU, and you should be treating them in an adversarial relationship because they have established themselves as such. The United States and the EU will be competing for the very, very rich British market. So we are going to be foes in that respect. We are also going to be foes in the respect that several EU initiatives run contrary, even completely antithetical to American values. Case in point, the current European Union efforts to stymie the internet and the use and creation of memes through extremely heavy-handed copyright protections. If you haven't heard anything about this, there's an excellent piece on it by Sargon of Akkad on his YouTube page. The European Union is seeking to pass articles which, if enacted, will essentially gut the ability for creative use and common sharing of intellectual property. Forget Creative Commons, forget Wikimedia, it's all gone. Fair use is dead on the table under the latest constraints from the European Union. How does that square with the freedoms that we enjoy here in the United States and that ostensibly people in the UK would seek to continue to enjoy as well? It doesn't. So the European Union is placing itself at odds with free Western society. Furthermore, we're talking about a country where it is illegal to offend someone, where there are laws that prevent the overt criticism of any religion, particularly overt criticism of Islam. Now, as a free-thinking American, I have the right to criticize any damn religion I want. I want to criticize Westboro Baptist Church, and I do frequently. I can criticize them up, down, left, right, and center. I want to criticize Scientology. I have the right to criticize them. I want to criticize evangelical Christianity and say, gee, kind of funny how you back President Trump wholeheartedly and then turn around and scorn on half a society for failing to uphold our values and committing sin. Kind of convenient, isn't it? I can call that out because I have the freedom to do so in the United States of America. Not so in Europe. If you call out a religion, if you speak or utter a phrase that is offensive to someone on a religious basis, they will put you up on charges. And you know what? It's coming to a neighborhood near you. They're already doing it in Canada, where a joke can get you jail time. This is the battle we are waging right now, and this is the context in which President Trump has labeled the European Union a foe. Don't get it twisted. We're not talking about a military foe. We're not talking about a strategic defense foe. We are talking about a foe in the courts, a foe in the circles of trade and commerce. Because good trade and commerce cannot function in a world where copyright protection laws are so tight that fair use becomes impossible and the internet is gutted. So perhaps time for a little bit of MEGA. Make the internet great again, indeed. Now I know I went on a bit of a tear there, a little bit rusty. I'll ask your indulgence. But we have a bit more that we need to get to today. Just a little bit more. As we approach the bottom of the hour, an NAACP lawyer, this is on Breitbart, says it's insane that Trump can appoint a Supreme Court of the United States, quote, when his entire authority is really suspect. That reported by Trent Baker apparently was on MSNBC. We'll go to that audio real quick. course, you gotta wait for the losing ad for guns. At least it's an ad for guns. Springfield Armory, I'll take that.
So Janelle, I'll start with you. What are your biggest concerns regarding Kavanaugh?
Well, first, I'm so concerned that we're even thinking about moving forward with a nomination process and a confirmation process in the midst of what we know is one of the most, if not the most, embattled presidencies of our country.
So do you think that because Donald Trump is under investigation that he should not be able to nominate anyone?
Absolutely. It's not just that he's under investigation. This is an unprecedented investigation. And the legitimacy of this presidency, which frankly has always been in question, is in question more than ever in light of the indictments that just came out yesterday,
right,
in light of the fact that we have almost 100 and almost 200, in fact, indictments or plea agreements that have into based on 35 people's actions, 3 companies. I mean, it is absolutely insane to think that he can make a lifetime appointment to one of the most significant and important institutions in our democracy in this moment when his entire authority is really suspect.
And you know, Matt,
we invited a wide range of hunters and shooters to experience the newest line of Bushnell optics on the range and in the field against the competition. Through testing, they came to the same conclusion we've known all along.
I hate those ads. I hate it when the clip rolls straight into an ad like that. But hey, taking a look back at things, Mueller told Trump's attorneys that the president remains under investigation, but is not currently a criminal target. So the question is, which is it? The answer is, it is whatever is most convenient for your argument at the time. Is the president currently under investigation? The election is currently under investigation, but the Mueller investigation has told us time and time again that President Trump is not the target of a criminal investigation. But anyway, so this is a broadcast of AM Joy. Janai Nelson, Associate Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense, argued it is absolutely insane that President Donald Trump is able to appoint a Supreme Court justice when his entire authority is really suspect. Now, I want you all to join me real quick. Just take a mental journey back to 2008 and heck, even 2012. And think about where we were at as conservatives at that point when the legitimacy of President Barack Obama was in question for us. That's right, there was a time. There was absolutely a time when, for many of us on the conservative side, whether you were a birther or not, where there were people questioning the validity of the Obama presidency, as whether or not he was a legitimate president. This is the mating call of the losing party. That is all it comes down to. As Homer Simpson once said, your best is the mating call of the loser. Okay, every time. This happened now 3 times in my life. In my political awake life. Hashtag Matt's not woke. But President George W. Bush was apparently an illegitimate president because of Florida and the hanging chads and the fact that he lost the popular vote and won the electoral college vote. President Barack Obama was held by many to be an illegitimate president because there was the birther conspiracy and et cetera, so on and so forth. A whole bunch of nonsense, really. Because we have a system in place where the president is thoroughly vetted. And in this case, President Barack Obama was president twice. And even under the investigation of Sheriff Joe Arpaio here in Maricopa County, they weren't able to successfully yield the smoking gun. So, as many people are going to defend Sheriff Joe Arpaio on the birtherism, I'm not going to. I don't know if he was born in Hawaii or not. What I know is it's post facto and it's now irrelevant. He was the President of the United States for 8 years. He was the legally elected President of the United States. The question of whether or not I believe he was born in Kenya is irrelevant. President Donald Trump was legally elected President of the United States. Whether or not the population of the United States was hoodwinked by Russians hacking the DNC, whether Hillary Clinton's campaign was sabotaged, or rather whether she just sucked so bad as a candidate that she got smoked in the Electoral College, whether the stab in the back that the DNC gave to the Bernie bros is any factor, notwithstanding, he is the legally elected president of the United States. There is no question of President Donald Trump's authority. There is no, she says, when his entire authority is really suspect, his authority isn't suspect. The man was elected president of the United States legally. The Russians didn't tamper with the ballots. That's never been an implication. The implication has been whether or not his candidacy, his campaign, colluded with the Russians to gain oppo information, opposition info, on Hillary Clinton. Here's the thing. Even if they tried to, they didn't get anything that was outwardly disqualifying for her, did they? She still got off scot-free on the email server, still got off scot-free on Benghazi, Uranium One, the Haitian fraud. So, where are we at here? Do I know if there was any collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians? No. Can anybody prove it at this point? Not sure, really. Does that change the fact that the man was rightly elected president of the United States? No, really doesn't. Because at the end of the day, the American people still voted for it, still put the man in office. The question is, did he commit a crime in the process? If he committed a crime, is it an impeachable crime? If it was, then he should be impeached. But banging the war drums like this over and over again and saying, until we know for sure the president should not be able to carry out any of his constitutionally appointed duties, that's insanity. That's what that is. That is dangerous and crippling to the American government. We must have continuity of government. And to be perfectly honest, going on 2 years now, this investigation's been rolling. If there was to be a smoking gun, would we have not seen it already? Or are we going to be subjected to more comic hearings of Peter Strzok, who insists repeatedly that despite his obvious bias and keen commitment, that the presidency of Donald Trump would be prevented, that this in no way has colored the FBI's investigation of possible collusion. Yeah, but never mind on that. Instead, we're going to go with the NAACP, which, while it may have been a laudable organization at one point, has become, at best, an anachronism, and at worst, they've become the vanguard of the very bigotry that civil rights leaders in the 1950s and 60s strove to end. We're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break. More on California Democrat Dianne Feinstein when we come back, seemingly getting her walking papers from the California Democratic Party. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Incoming transmission.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
On the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona, I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Taking a look now at, somebody get me a wash rag I need to clean up, the Huffington Post. No way I can say that without gagging. Sorry. According to HuffPost, California Democratic Party snubs Dianne Feinstein, and it couldn't happen to a nicer lady. Progressives backed the incumbent's challenger, Kevin De Leon, in November's Senate election. So, echoing the rise of the New York State Socialist, whose name I've quite forgotten. Oh my God. Where is it? Where is it? Oh. Yeah, this is why it helps to have a producer. So, yeah, I'm gonna look into getting one of those. So, let's see, the Socialist of New York. There we go. Recent top story in New York off the Washington Post. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that's her name. So, echoing the rise of Miss Cortez and the red socialism in New York, it appears that progressives in the state of California are now backing challenger Kevin De Leon in November's Senate election in California. Excuse me. So, in a stunning rebuke, the California Democratic Party declined to endorse Senator Dianne Feinstein in her re-election bid and instead backed her progressive challenger on the November ballot, State Senator Kevin De Leon. De Leon, a fellow Democrat, received the 65% vote of the 330 members of the state's party's executive board in Oakland on Saturday, more than 60% needed to secure the endorsement. Feinstein received 7% of the vote, while 28% voted for no endorsement. She had requested the vote in the name of party unity. Feinstein, at 85, finished first in the state's primary, with the 51-year-old De Leon emerging as her general election challenger under California's top two nominating system. Neither candidate received the necessary 60% of support in a gathering of the state Democratic Party before the June vote. Feinstein, first elected in 1992, remains favored to cruise to victory over her relatively unknown opponent, despite the latest rebuff from state party activists. She holds the overwhelming fundraising advantage and has led the polls by 30%. So while there's no appearance that Senator Dianne Feinstein will be ousted by anything other than the Grim Freaking Reaper, which I don't wish upon her upon anybody else, but it's just got to be said, the woman's 85 years old. When you start getting into that age group, we start talking about the Strom Thurmond effect, where you're going to be there until they carry you out in a box. This does echo the huge upset that just took place in the state of New York. And imagine the impact if Senator Dianne Feinstein were suddenly ousted by a more progressive candidate. Feinstein's taken several steps to bring herself more in line with the political shifts in her home state. In May, for example, she reversed her long-standing opposition to marijuana decriminalization, saying she was open to extending federal protections for states that have legalized it. Now, something to think about, and it's something I was listening to Dennis Prager on the Ben Shapiro show this morning. Something serious to consider. What scares you more? The furthest right of the right or the furthest left of the left? And my answer would be the furthest left of the left wing, and here's why. There is no significant danger for the hardline right wing to take control of the current Republican Party. This is not an issue. President Donald Trump does not represent the far right. President Donald Trump represents President Donald Trump. The establishment Republicans, your Reince Priebus types, your Mitch McConnells, your Paul Ryans, if you will, are a different animal entirely to, say, your Rand Pauls or your Ted Cruz or your Mike Lee. So there are kind of three camps within the Republican Party, and the ball doesn't seem to be drifting. The party as a whole does not seem to be drifting further to the right, no matter how much we may want it to, which is not necessarily a bad thing. However, the Democratic Party as a whole is making a seismic shift further to the left, further into the arms of socialism, further into the arms of collectivism in the name of quote-unquote progressivism. As evidenced by the upcoming doom of the East Coast Democratic Party in the hands of people like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. And what you are going to find is you're going to find the moderate Democrats leaving the party in droves, as they even are presently among millennials, folks. Even millennials are starting to smell the stink of death on the Democratic Party, because they are moving too far, too fast. It is the traditional Democratic Party model to jump the shark on itself. Move too far, too fast, such to the point that you scare off your support. So that coming from the Huffington Post, and that's a tab I'm very happy to close on my browser. Now, coming up here, I really despise touching on the Stormy Daniels outcry. But something caught my attention here. I don't know if you've checked out online James Woods, notable actor, rather strong conservative, surprisingly so. And he has been a very vocal proponent of President Donald Trump and of conservatism as a whole. Okay, so he made a recent tweet. This is covered by the Daily Mail. He made a tweet that said, "Oh, look, the real diapered hot air balloon," referring to Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, following her arrest in Ohio at an Ohio strip joint where she allegedly made physical contact with undercover officers, which is forbidden under Ohio law. So Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, has threatened to expose actor James Woods' quote, "Me Too" issues after a series of Twitter jabs. So, the implication there is made quite plain by Michael Avenatti by tweet. He says, "Has been Jimbo," which is apparently his nom de plume for James Woods. "You know what I love?" Still quoting. "Every time you pop off about me, one or two more women contact my office and describe your harassment, assault of them, and Me Too issues seeking representation. Keep playing games, and you will be next. I promise." How about that? How about that? How long have we been predicting the weaponization, the political weaponization of the Me Too movement. There it is, folks. Michael Avenatti, counsel for Stormy Daniels, jumping on Twitter and essentially telling James Woods, sit down and shut up, or we'll take you to court for harassment under Me Too. Claiming that I have women lined up describing your harassment and assault of them, and threatening to take him to court for #MeToo issues. This is what I talk about when I say jumping the shark. This is it exactly. Where we came out at the beginning and said, we don't like harassment of women. We don't like sexual harassment or assault of women. It's a horrible thing. But the danger is this. The danger is the use of this as a political weapon. And immediately you get raked over the coals by the left. Oh, no, how could you even say that? How can you even think that? That's a horrible thing. How can you even say that? Okay. Let's rewind. Let's look back to Hodges v. Overfell and the legalization of gay marriage. And how many on the right, social conservatives, said, all right, we understand that, you guys want to fight for gay marriage, but where does it stop? Gay marriage, it's all very, very well and good. Where I stand on gay marriage is you do you, and I'll do me, and we won't do each other probably. And, quoting Markiplier there, I prefer the Alabama model where you don't get a wedding license. Nobody does. Government has no place in marriage. But I digress. The big concern was the slippery slope. Is how long will it be before pedophilia is brought into the mainstream and is included in the LGBTQ IIAP !! Apparently that day is coming up a lot quicker than we thought. And is it so bad for conservatives and people on the right to look at these things and say, we told you so, and point directly to it? Point straight to Michael Avenatti weaponizing the Me Too movement to try to batter James Woods to sit down and shut up and stop being a vocal conservative on Twitter. When we see groups in HuffPo articles, granted from 2013, and in more recent pieces, and in TED Talks, suggesting the mainstreaming and normalization of pedophilia, can we not point to that and go, yeah, we told you this was coming? We looked at this when we were talking about the legalization of gay marriage, and we said, okay, we can see what you're talking about on gay marriage. We don't agree, but we can see what you're talking about on gay marriage. What happens when pedophiles want recognition? That's just another sexual preference. That's not a crime. That's not a sickness. What about when that happens? Are you going to support them? No, of course not. Never. No. How could you even say such a thing? That's horrible. What is wrong with you? And raking the right over the coals for it. Well, sorry, folks, but I am Nostradamus. Do you believe? I am Nostradamus. And I conceive. I mean, that should be the gloat. At this point, the rueful acknowledgement coming from the right is that we saw it coming. We brought it to the attention of our compatriots on the left. They mocked us and scoffed at us. No, that never happened. No, oh God, no. And here we are today. 2018. Pedophiles seeking recognition as a legitimate sexual choice. People using the Me Too movement as a weapon to quash dissent. And people are getting up in arms about President Trump saying that the European Union, in the realm of trade, is a foe. That's what leads the news today. When, believe it or not, when it comes to the free expression of ideas and free trade, yes, the EU is a foe. Yes, they are on the wrong side of history. When we see Democrat holdfasts like Dianne Feinstein suddenly finding herself seemingly without a party. She's probably going to win this election, but it is very clear that her party is moving away from her and is moving towards something more progressive and more socialist than she is willing to easily embrace. You know, when people say, like there's the famous quote from President Reagan, that I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me. Well, right now, there are a lot of Americans waking up and finding out their party has left them. And the right is so polarized and so hateful right now on our own side that we cannot possibly embrace these people. So this is what I talked about several months ago when I talked about the upcoming fracture of American politics. Because you are going to find a whole bunch of Democrats who no longer have a party that they recognize needing somewhere to go. Just as you found a bunch of Republicans and conservatives needing somewhere to go. And where do they turn? They turn to Trump. And Donald Trump was able to harness that and turn it into a victory. That is what we need to be worried about going into 2020. Is who are these abandoned Democrats going to find and latch on to? Is President Trump going to make a run toward the center to try to take advantage of that and sail to victory on a moderate platform in 2020? Is he going to dive further to the right to try to pick up some of the lost Republicans? Or is an entirely new, heretofore unknown player going to emerge and vie for all those moderates lost in the middle, who feel like not only do they not have a president who they feel is rightful and who they feel is viable, they may feel like they don't even have a party anymore. On that note, though, I actually watched the whole Queen Elizabeth video. I thought it went pretty damn well. And, yeah, 12 indictments, or is it 20 indictments now, handed down to Russian spies that are never going to set foot in the United States for extradition. Yeah. Welcome back, guys. HoloNet Podcast here in Phoenix, Arizona on the Lanterns Media Network. We're here to hold the line against the night. And at Lanterns Media Network, we're here to fix the machine. No matter where you stand on the bedrock of the Constitution of the United States on your own convictions. Bear true faith and allegiance to the same. It's good to be back. Thank you for your patience. Good night. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. Hey everyone, this is Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HoloNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on Patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HoloNet on Patreon.com, and you can access that at Patreon.com/TheHoloNet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HoloNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial constitutional conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HoloNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.